Need one. One run.
521.
Starting a card for a parking problem.
4 in your 23.
Yeah, 4, I'll get a 28 from one truck when you're ready.
Go ahead.
One truck, White Lincoln X-ray 985 should come back up next.
So you had 2000. Patrick Spalding.
10-4. If you can just put a little note in something like that, I'm going to be leaving a note on his vehicle so they can verify it.
Rockingham 505. Enter vandalism case for Athens. Complainant, soon to be ex, slashed her tires and has made threatening comments to her. She's concerned he might return.
Yeah, forgive that's a 32.
10-4. You're assigned to a vandalism case in Athens. Did you copy the 505?
Yeah, 4. Look at that.
21.
No, 3 in Depot Street. Truck boy entry 5.
7435.
Tantrum.
10-4.
You go 43 again.
143.
You go with that 43 you had. I didn't hear any, but it just looks like we do.
10-4. I just wanted to know if you should be put back 76 to Cabana Circle or to the subject's address.
Yeah, I'll be 23 back on the town property case, and I'll be 76 to the Williams Road address to see if I can find the owner.
10-4. 449 1120.
449 1121, thank you.
10-4.
Code 4. 4.
Alright, we have 535.
Yeah, that was a great college.
535.
Should be. You guys know for a woman who fucked into a house. I'll flight up that way.
Caller is now been able to close the front door. He's now pounding on the door, trying to get it still. apply for it while they're here. Got tie-dye shirt on. Number 21 from...
We have separation. Inboard now. She's right.
And that's why this shit offends me, because his cancer is fake. He has fake terminal cancer. He's not dying now. He was never dying. And Michelle K can go fuck herself, ban this woman from the chat. You don't tell me to move on, Michelle, okay? This is my show. I will rant about Plevin being a fucking worthless piece of shit for lying about cancer for 4 hours if I feel like. And you will sit there and fucking eat that shit, won't you? You will swallow every single second of it and you will go nowhere. Nobody tells me what to say on the show. Nobody. Get rid of them. Get them out of here. Mods, ban these motherfuckers with their crying about moving on. You don't tell me to move on. I talk about whatever the fuck I want to talk about and you sit there and you swallow that shit. You go, yeah. And you just take more and more of it. Because that's your job. You don't tell me. You're not the director of the show. Shut the fuck up. All right. Anyway, back to his fundraiser because Michelle wants them. We're gonna.
Hey guys, good evening. Oh, it's a little dark in here. Let me turn the lights up a little bit. That guy is clearly coming undone. I mean, you can see it, right? You can see it on his face. This is a man that knows he's been beaten. He can't win on the field of the battle. That's it. So he has to try to come after me. And we're going to prove, as I've proved before, that I have made no false claims ever. All right. And so you'll know the whole story. But I don't want to make this award just about that. So we're going to have a very interesting show tonight. I actually am going to have Kate Peter on, and we're going to play and discuss the admin voice chat from Jenna Rocco. And I will tell you about my own personal experience with the Roccos, and particularly Nick. And we're going to have a both sides kind of discussion about these things. And we're going to be fair and objective. But think about that there. Turtleboy telling somebody that's one of his regulars. I think I didn't watch the show. So the clip was on Jen Coffindaffer's page. But I had people texting me during his show, numerous people, and they were all, complaining that this is what he was doing. But he said he's got people that are free care and people in chat after he was ranting about me for a long time, saying, all right, enough, move on. And he got mad at them for that. And that's how he treats his own fans. He says he's going to take a dump in their mouths and they're going to like it. So I don't understand, how does someone moderate for that channel? You can't. So he's telling people instructions, get them out of here. You can't be a moderator for that channel and not be a cultist. There's no middle ground here. All right. If you're a moderator for Turtleboy's channel, you are a cultist and you're taking your orders from that highly irrational, insane human being. All right. So without wasting too much time on this, I will do as I've done before. Actually, let's just play that part of that for one more time, since it's kind of entertaining.
Fucking eat that shit, won't you? You will swallow every single second of it.
Sorry.
And that's why this shit offends me, because his cancer is fake. He has fake terminal cancer. He's not dying now. He was never dying. And Michelle K can go fuck herself, ban this woman from the chat. You don't tell me to move on, Michelle, okay? This is my show. I will rant about Plevin being a fucking worthless piece of shit for lying about cancer for 4 hours if I feel like. And you will sit there and fucking eat that shit, won't you? You will.
He's telling that to a supporter who's sick of him talking about this, right? Jeff, Are you telling me to move on, Jeff? I'm gonna. I'm just kidding, buddy. So let's pull in, and I know it doesn't seem. The last time I did this was in July, and I apologize if it seems important for me to do it. If it's just one idiot saying it, unfortunately, there's a lot of them out there. So there's someone, mom, something that shows a picture of her own scar on her skull and says that's what it's like to have brain cancer and surgery. I never said I had brain cancer. So let me just tell you guys about the cancer experience. And I think I have been extremely fortunate. And I'm going to bring in, as I tell you about the experience, I'm going to also log into my patient portal. All right. So this is, you can see my name here, patient gateway. This is Mass General Hospital's portal. I don't think there's any incriminating information. That's my primary care physician. Henning Willers is my radiation oncologist. Justin Gaynor is my primary oncologist. And Is he actually is the same person who treated Jeremy Remy. And I actually, no, is it Jerry? I'm sorry, Jerry Remy. What kind of Red Sox fan am I? No, I can't remember. Maybe I do have brain cancer. Is it Jeremy or Jerry Remy? I think it's Jerry Remy. But I actually saw Remy there one of the times when I was there, only about a month before he passed. So my particular experience was this. So I think it was around the spring of 2017 where I started having, Jerry, thank you, RL, where I started having pain in my left hand. Now, I think it's not a bad idea to pay attention to what I'm going to say here, but don't overreact to it because these symptoms could be something else. But what I'm going to describe now actually is common symptoms for lung cancer. It doesn't sound like it, but it is. In fact, I wish my primary care doctor had known that because since then I've seen ads that show that these are things you have to look for. So I started out with very mild pain in my left hand, and because you would never think that was lung cancer, right? And I didn't. Well, I thought it was like something similar to tennis elbow, so I started trying to work it out, study different types of exercises. I would spent different types of stretching things that I would do at the gym. Over a period of months, it spread to my elbow, and it was much more painful in my elbow. And I had to sleep with my arm on this, like hanging out on the side of the bed. And again, I thinking some kind of tennis elbow. I used to wake up like every hour or two of the night, and I had one of those elastic exercise bands on the bedpost, and I would try to stretch it out. I thought it was something going on with my arm. So this goes on for a period of months. And slowly it started to spread a little bit where you'd feel pain in other parts of your body. But then by June of 2018, the pain was in my upper back, and I'm pretty good with pain. This was extreme pain, like to the point where when it finally reached a certain point, I already had an appointment set up with a neck doctor because we thought maybe that it was a slipped disc in my neck, and so you're getting something nicking the nerve, But when I finally went into that neck doctor, I was at the end of my rope in terms of pain. I hadn't slept in 2 or 3 nights at all. I mean, the pain was awful, and he gave me a cortisone. He agreed it's probably a disc problem. He gave me a cortisone shot in the neck, and then he gave me some various pain drugs, including one of the oxys. Also gabapentin, which is a nerve pain thing, and prescription ibuprofen. And that stuff actually did help a lot. It reduced my pain down to I could sleep at night. It was manageable. So then I had to get through the next level of testing. And it took a little longer because I actually I tried to take an MRI even with medication, and I have claustrophobia, and I couldn't get through it. So that delayed the treatments, but they finally did a CT scan, and I was scheduled to meet with my doctor. I don't remember these exact dates, but this was the end of September, maybe the beginning of October 2018. And it was a week before my appointment to meet with the neck doctor to go over the results. I got a call from his office that the doctor would like you to come in today. Now, that's the call like you've imagined hearing your whole life, right? Like when the doctor says, no, he wants to see you today. That's never good, right? So I remember, I told my friend Dina, who comes in here once in a while, my good writing friend and one of my best friends, that's never a good call. We were kind of joking about it. And so I went in and the doctor came down and he was nervous. He's a neck doctor. He never had to give anybody this kind of news like this. And he's like, look, he goes, we found the scans found numerous lesions on your rib cage and on your spine and one in your shoulder. He said, so it's some kind of cancer that is already spreading. So when he told me, I was kind of like, all right. And I didn't break down or something like that. I think he expected me to. And he said, you seem to be taking this okay. I said, yeah. I said, I'm just processing how I'm going to deal with this, how I'm going to tell my family and stuff like that. And so he wasn't sure what to do. So he slid over close to me and he says, and he started going over the Kubler-Ross, whatever that 9 points of grief or something like that. I'm like, whoa. I said, I'm not ready to plan my funeral yet, doctor. I said, I want to fight this. He goes, oh yeah, I know, I understand. So the next step should have been to get a PET scan, but they made a mistake. They sent me for a bone scan. This was at Holy Name Hospital in Methuen, Massachusetts. And so that just told me more about where the lesions were on my body, but it didn't tell me anything about what kind of cancer I had. So at that point, the decision was made, consulting my family and stuff like that, to move over to my treatments and my care to Mass General Hospital in Boston. So we called them up, but we didn't know what kind of cancer I had. So they weren't sure what doctor to assign me with, right? So they gave me to this initially just to get it started with this Dr. Lin was his name. And you'll see the first test results here. And Dr. Lin was awesome. He did a different kind of cancer than I ultimately needed. I forget what he did. I think he maybe did throat cancer or something like that. And very, very gentle human being. And he said, all right, so what we're going to do is do a PET scan to find out what the source cancer is. And then I remember, so you see it down the bottom. This is the beginning of my testing here. Let me see if this is on the screen. That's about as big as I can make it. That is as big as I can make it. So, so you can see the initial testing here, where they test your chest, the base of your skull, your abdomen, stuff like that. And I never know. Let's see. So let's go to the chest one. So again, this is a PET scan. And findings: lungs and airways. There is a right apical mass measuring 3.8, 2.8 centimeters. There is another right upper lobe mass measuring 4.6 to 3.4 centimeters, and blah, blah, blah. So you get all this kind of stuff. There is a mass-like consolidation in the right middle lobe. So diffuse granular ground glass nodules. Appears to be a background of cystic change, which might be whatever that stuff is. There are enlarged mediastinal lymph nodes. There were multiple osteoblastic lesions. Now, that's also what that is. An osteoblastic lesion is otherwise known as metastases. So that's why it's called metastatic cancer. By definition, once it spreads to other parts of the body, that's stage 4. And that is technically terminal. There's generally no cure for it with most kinds of cancer. And so I knew before I'd even had found out what kind of cancer I had, that I had some kind of stage 4 cancer. And so you see these are just listing C7, TT5. These are all different parts of the spinal column where all these lesions are. So this would have been a source of a lot of the pain, and also on the ribs. And all right, so the pit bull commented the other night, well, he never proved that he had cancer. Let me see if I can find that one here. Anatomic pathology. All right. Final pathological diagnosis. This is from biopsy, I guess. So metastatic. Yeah. So after you find, so I got a call from Dr. Lin saying he was trying to break it nicely. He said, we found a spot in your lung, which I knew that it was more than that. But I said, okay. So next I met with a team led by Dr. Gaynor, and he said, we need to biopsy it to find out what the genetic nature of cancer is from a mutation in the cells. So that creates your type of cancer. Yeah, so you want to find out the genetic profile of that cancer. And so you go to the biopsy, and I remember he was like, we're going to schedule your biopsy for 2 weeks. And I wasn't pushy, but I was like, doctor, I want to fight this. So can we do it quicker? And they were very accommodating at Mass General Hospital. And they had to rearrange things, and the doctor had to come in like an hour early. I think I had my biopsy at like 5 o'clock in the morning. But they accommodated that. So they rushed through my biopsy, and this was the results. So metastatic, which by definition is stage 4, and by definition is terminal. And I'm just reading this. You can see my picture up in the right-hand corner. Metastatic non-small cell carcinoma, favor adenocarcinoma with pleomorphic features, and immunochemistry. Tumor cells are positive for TTF1. I don't know what that means, but this other one is kind of interesting. So negative for P40, a dual PDL1. So what this is about, so score of 0 to 1 of 3. All right, so you've heard about immunotherapy, right? And the big one that you see on TV all the time, having a brain fart, I can't remember, but it's the one that Jimmy Carter took. But that kind of immunotherapy only works if you test at a high result on this PDL1. If you have a low one, it won't work. So that type of immunotherapy is not something that's likely to be successful with me. So that's probably not going to be a treatment in the future. So anyways, and I'll just do one more. This is the brain one. So that idiot mom something who's posts unbelievably on Twitter. She shows a picture of her back of her head with a scar on it, and she says, he's a grifter and he's a liar. This is what it looks like to have brain cancer, not like him. I don't have brain cancer. I've never had any surgery done or radiation done on my brain. I have 3 lesions in my brain. And so these are somewhat described here, and tells you where they are. I don't know if that, but they are basic, but they weren't large enough that they had to be radiated. Now, for those that say, why is he still alive? And I know they wish like how I wasn't, right? It's not a miracle. It's basically medicine. Now, I've been very lucky to have lasted as long as I did, but it's not a miracle. I have a good friend, who just coincidentally was diagnosed with the exact same cancer. So I don't just mean lung cancer. I mean, literally had the exact same genetic mutation and the same driver in his cancer. And so it was on the exact same medicine for me. He was diagnosed 2 months before me and he's still alive. Now he's going through a hard time now. His cancer is now growing again more rapidly, and he is starting heavy chemotherapy, I think next week, or I'm not sure, or it might be a clinical trial involved in chemotherapy and something else. I'm not sure, but he's in a very anxious time now because we're getting to a point where maybe, hopefully, in a few years, there will be some next ship, but it's a race. It takes a long time for these things to get approved, and the pandemic held things up. But there's optimism now, from my point of view, with things like ChatGPT. These language models are able to look at the biochemistry of the body, similar to the way they look at language, and the way they look at computer coding. So I think there's going to be some really good breakthroughs because of that help in the next several years. But so it's not a miracle that I last this long, but it does put me in the, like, say, 1 or 2% range. And so I will talk about one other aspect of this. They say that I grifted on this with a GoFundMe. Yeah, I don't think I need to log into that, but I actually forgot about the GoFundMe until they started digging it up. But here's the deal on the GoFundMe. So back when I went through that process and I was initially diagnosed with cancer, but before I knew what kind of cancer, my good friend Tom Fleming said, you are your favorite moderator here. Tom said, hey, Kev, have you ever looked into the THC cure? And there was a whole Facebook group that was THC for cancer or something like that. So, when you get this kind of a diagnosis, it says you have a spreading cancer that has no cure. One of the things that I think is natural for most of us, if you want to fight, is to look for some kind of a cure, and you're open to trying different things. So I looked at that and I became interested, but it was going to cost about $6,000. I think the estimate that I had at the time was $6,600. And so I made a GoFundMe and I put up as a target goal 7,000. But then I never posted it anywhere because I wasn't comfortable with asking anybody for anything. But a couple of writer friends of mine, Dana McKinnon, who you see here, and Pia Cook, two great friends of mine from Florida, we were active in this writing group. I won't say the name of it because, unfortunately, that's the nature of this crowd. But there were writers. I had been participating in that writing group with them there for years. So they posted a link to my GoFundMe there in the writing group. And so this GoFundMe had a total of 25. I looked at it today for the first time in like 5 years. Had a total contribution of 25 people. It raised a little over $3,000. Now, 23 of those contributions came right there in the first couple weeks from that writers group. They were all writers, every single one of them. They were very generous. One person, I think a British writer, donated $1,000. And then my friend Pia donated a lot of money too. And everybody else, it was mostly, $50. And they were just, Kevin, you've always helped me out as a writer. Good luck, go beat cancer and this and that. The only exception after that, now I believe it was one of them, but I'm not 100% sure, posted a link to it on my Facebook group, on my Facebook profile page, and I left it up there. It's probably still up there, but it was from a long time ago. I never reposted it. Probably very few people saw it. But I had an ex-girlfriend from years ago that I was still in touch with, actually from college, believe it or not. It's a long time ago. But I'm still friends with her. And she had called me up and to see how I was doing. And when we were talking, I mentioned the cancer. And so then she looked on the Facebook group and saw that. So she donated money. And she had her mom donate money. Now, that was in, I believe, the winter of 2019. Those are the last donations. So it's been 5 years since anybody donated to that. And I don't even think you can donate it to it now. I mean, it's not some. So it's not some. So when they say I'm grifting on that, I forgot about it until they brought it up. I've never posted a link to that. No one's donated to that at all. I don't think you can, and I don't want you to. I don't even know if that $200 that went into it went to my account, or it might still be in the GoFundMe somewhere. I don't know. The last person that my girlfriend put in. So, and since then, they've actually now been sending complaints to GoFundMe saying that that account is fraudulent. Now, mind you, they have no evidence of that. But I hate to say it, but this is, you don't want to demonize a whole side. There are good people on the Free Karen Read side. There absolutely are. There absolutely are. But this is kind of par for the course for what goes on that side. Obviously, not all of them. But a lot of the main players, they're not some of the brightest people in the world, and they're not some of the most decent people in the world. And I'm sorry if that sounds biased, but this is what we see. Even just to be doing what they do and going after people who are not accused of a crime and who there's really no evidence for a crime, the way they go after them without asking any questions, they don't ever pause to think, do I got this right? Even after 9 jurors voted guilty, and so at least 9 of the 12 jurors and probably more utterly dismissed that conspiracy theory. That doesn't make them pause. That doesn't make them back off and say, maybe I got to stop using the word McAlberts. Maybe I got to stop accusing people that in all likelihood are innocent, right? I'm saying I know they're innocent, but from a logical standpoint, if 9 people utterly rejected that theory and probably more on the jury, people that heard all the evidence, then just logically you would have to say, yeah, do I have this right? If you're a decent person and you happen to be a Free Karen reader, you should be saying to yourself, am I really sure about that I'm not accusing innocent people? If you're not doing that, then you're just not a decent person. I'm sorry, you're not. If you want to say that you doubt the state's case, okay. And if you want to say there's a lot of odd things here that you're not satisfied with the explanation, okay. But if you're sitting there accusing people of being part of a murder conspiracy, when 9 jurors dismissed it, at least 9, then there's something morally wrong with you. There is something morally and ethically wrong with you. Or your brain just doesn't work right. You're not able to process evidence in a rational, reasonable way. And I'm sorry if that's offensive to some of those guys. I am sorry, but it is what it is. Okay, logic is what it is, and you just got to kind of follow it that way. Now, Kate's going to be on in about 15 minutes. So what I want to do before she comes on is play the video that she posted. Now, first, Kate posted a couple of days ago an excellent video. She does an outstanding job. She's a very creative video editor, Kate, as you know, and she's a good writer too. And actually, I can announce here now too that me and Kate are working on a joint project that'll be a little bit different than this. I am narrating it, or at least I'm narrating episode 1. Maybe we'll get Kate to narrate some of the other ones. And the approach of this other second project, this is something that I started working on in August and then put it on hold when I decided to do the book. But the idea is to target the good, decent people, and there's thousands of them out there, that are on the fence or even think that there might be a conspiracy, but not because they're the people that just have only followed this in the news and very loosely in social media. So they haven't followed it closely. They're not part of the mob. They're not part of either mob, right? But they think there's something fishy here. So I am targeting them. And I want it to be not a lecture to them. It's a discussion with them. I want to bring them through the process that I have gone through covering this case over the last year and a half, where you start out thinking there is something fishy, and then you're learning about the process, and you're learning just about how ignorant you are on many aspects of the process. And that's just the realities that most of us are. Even if you work in law enforcement, there are parts of the process that you're ignorant about, right? You could be a retired police detective, but that doesn't mean you know much about how forensic data works, for example. So we should start out with recognizing we're ignorant about so many things. Like an example I use, I am ignorant. I've been voting my whole life, but all I know is I go in, I fill up my ballot, drop it in a box and some counter seems to count it, right? What happens there? Does, how does my vote get tabulated? Does somebody just come over and copy that number? Is there a computer that does it? I don't know. It's a mystery to me. How the sausage gets made in an election, I have no idea. And there are many, 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 many things in life that are like that for me. And they're like that for everyone. So I didn't know when this case started anything about forensic data, how that worked. I knew next to nothing about autopsies, about medical examiners, how they worked. I knew nothing about how the Mass State Police conduct an investigation into an unattended death. And these things matter. They really affect, and they have been exploited by this defense team to make things look mysterious that are not at all mysterious. Are you guys watching on YouTube? Yeah. Somebody's saying they can't find on YouTube. So let me just text them back. Yeah, it looks like I see comments from YouTube. So this must be just a problem on their end. So yes, I am live now. And we have about 350 people in the YouTube watching, waiting for Kate. And looks like about 600 people on Twitter and like about 10 people on Facebook. So there's a lot of this stuff about how an investigation works. Hey, Karen, you made it in. Finally, I was never able to figure out how we were blocking or how it wasn't working, so I made her a mod. And so you have to have some common sense to say, look, we don't know how these things work, so we'd better start looking into it because the defense is exploiting this stuff. And a lot of this stuff that all sounds mysterious or odd was not odd. And I've gone into many aspects of that in this case. Why did they tow the vehicle to the Sally port? Well, early on, and for the first year, it seemed a little weird to me too. But now I know that that is the only logical place they would have towed it to because it was a mile away from the DA's office, and you bring evidence to the DA's office. The defense made a big deal about the fact that John's clothing was not logged into the Mass State Police system, evidence system, for 6 weeks. And Nick Rocco used to talk about this on Court TV. Where was the clothing? Was it in Michael Proctor's? Was it in the back of his truck? Was it in his SUV? It seems really suspicious, right? Like, why wouldn't you log that clothing in for 6 weeks? What's going on with it? Is it in somebody's car? Is that because somebody's messing with it? I think Nick Rocco used to think they were taking it to the laundromat to get rid of canine DNA. No, it's actually the way it works. So you remember the old show, Law and Order, right? The system works with the prosecutor, first with the police and then the prosecutors. They work hand in hand. Now that's in a big city like New York. The law enforcement aspect of it is going to be the local police. It's going to be New York homicide, or if it's in Boston, it'll be Boston homicide. But if you're in a town, any place smaller than Worcester or Springfield in Massachusetts, it's going to be run by the Mass State Police. But they don't do it themselves. They do it hand in hand with the local police from that town. Now, the prosecution comes from the county seat, so the district attorney. And naturally, the people that need the most access to the evidence are who? The prosecutors. So the evidence that is gathered in the Karen Reed case goes to the evidence room at the DA's office. It doesn't go to some police barracks somewhere. Okay? It goes to that's logical. That's where the evidence is going to go, near the prosecutors. Now, why did it go 6 weeks later into the Mass State Police system? Because some of this evidence has to eventually be tested in a lab. And the DA's office, none of them have a lab in it. Why would they? That's a specialized thing. So the state police have the labs. So John's clothing eventually is going to be tested for a variety of things. So because of that, it gets transferred into a state police lab where a criminologist goes over it and analyzes it. That is the point. That is the time when that clothes gets logged into the state police evidence system. Now, this is just a matter of fact, simple way that it operates. I'm telling you now, but I didn't know. But now I know. It's simple. I figured it out. And David Yannetti knows this. David Yannetti knows that this is normal, that this is how it works. Alan Jackson knows it. Attorney Little knows it. Why did they suggest it was something odd? The fact that it wasn't logged in for 6 weeks. Because they're not trying to tell you the truth. They're trying to deceive you. They're trying to exploit little things that are not odd and make them seem odd. That's what they do. Now, you can say maybe that's just what a defense attorney is supposed to do. Well, a defense attorney is not supposed to be trying it in the public, for one thing. So there's no excuse for what these guys are doing. But we in the public have an obligation before we start going around and throwing stones at innocent people to understand what the hell's going on. Now, it's unfortunate the way the system is. We don't get explained any of this in the media, and we don't get really get explained it very well in trial. It's just not a good, a trial is not a good format for that. So Adam Lally can't go out and explain these things. All he can do is ask questions to the witnesses. So the prosecutor is always going to be very limited. It's very disappointing that no TV source will try to give the public a better understanding. Just like with the voting, I don't know what goes on with the voting, and nobody on Channel 5 or 60 Minutes wants to tell me. So it remains a mystery, like many mundane, routine things, but important things in life, they remain a mystery. Okay? All right, so let's go to I just wanted to set that up. So this is Jenna. This is the video. Hold on one second. All right. So let me just introduce it really quick. All right. So this is Nick Rocco on the right of the screen. Jenna is his wife all the way on the other end. In the middle is Karen and Alan Jackson. They're all about the same size. And, I've met Nick twice in Dedham, and I liked him. I found him to be a sincere, honest guy. I don't know Jenna, but Jenna came across in the admin chat that we went over in those notes about a month ago as the adult in the room. And as far as I can tell, Nick and Jenna have not tried to benefit on this in any way. They're not launching a YouTube channel, none of that. They just really believe in it. And so I have not seen any evidence to the contrary. And when this was all blowing up in last May, they stayed focused on the task instead of Turtleboy was threatening to them, but they stayed focused on what was best for Karen. And so we got to respect that. They were mature enough. Not many people could do that. They were able to do that. So I don't know the date of this recording, but it would be around May 3rd. And at that time, I went to Dedham for my second shoot. And I was at the Dedham House of Pizza. And I met Nick for the second time. And he kind of opened up with me. And he told me, and I could tell he was sincere. He said, "I really, really bothers me when they accuse you of faking cancer." And then I won't share it, but he gave me a very personal story about a family member of his that had a very difficult ordeal with cancer, one that seems to have been fortunately successful, but they live in terror all the time for it. And he was very emotional and sincere in telling me that I really don't like when they say that about you. Then he related to me a problem that he was having there with Turtleboy going mad at him and going after him and his wife because Turtleboy was jealous because they had put Nick on Court TV, not Turtleboy. That pissed him off. Turtleboy felt he was entitled to that seat. And Turtleboy told Nick, if they won't let me do it, because obviously for obvious reasons, I have no, other than going on Court TV, I have no behind the scenes communications with them. I don't know why they don't have Turtleboy on, but it's not hard to figure out, right? You can't have a guy like that on who's on there calling the victim's mother the C word all the time, calling the judge that, and who by last May was charged with a variety of crimes. You don't really think a TV network is going to put you on like that, do you? But he did. And he basically told Nick, If they won't have me on, then you shouldn't go on either. So Nick does an effective job at defending Karen's interests on court TV. I was on him with like 50 times. I think he does a good job. But Turtleboy would rather nobody defend Karen on court TV if it can't be him. Just an insight into what kind of guy he is. The guy only cares about himself. I mean, and if his own followers, the writers, can't see that, oh my God, they're so fucking stupid. It's ridiculous. But so then he was also upset because they had X amount of spaces in court. It was in a small courtroom, and she was having Nick and Jenna in, not Turtle. Oh, was Turtle pissed about that? He was pissed about that. And like Nick said, he said, look, he goes, this isn't, this has nothing to do with me. What was I supposed to do? When Karen asked me to come to court, was I supposed to say no? When Court TV asked me to come on, was I supposed to say no? I felt bad for him. He felt like he legitimately seemed like Turtle had been a hero to him, and now he's caught between a rock and a hard place. He wasn't really sure what to do. So this must have been at exactly the same time, and we've read this stuff from similar to this from the files, but it's way more powerful to hear it in Jenna's voice. And all the things that she talks about here, Nick had said the same thing to me, so that 100% confirms it. So let's just listen to it.
Well, first of all, like, he didn't really understand what was going on. He was just like, what the fuck is wrong with this dude? And then when Nick really explained it, how, like, if he doesn't get what he wants going forward, so, like, I can't be an admin, you can't be an admin, and the only reason why Nick is still on is because he's the creator. Alan was like, well, so he hasn't.
So what they're talking about is the admin for the Facebook group, and we'll bring Kate on right after this, and she'll be able to tell us more. But the Facebook group was founded by Nick, so he had absolute control of it. But I believe the Facebook group has Turtleboy's name on it, so Turtleboy believed he should control it, and he wanted absolute control. And so he was raging because Nick had control of that. Not that he was exercising anything. Turtleboy was a moderator. Nick wasn't being heavy-handed or anything. But it's a territorial thing. Turtleboy wanted control because he was denied the court TV thing, and he was denied a seat in the court. And he couldn't take it. So he was willing to threaten everybody, Nick and Jenna and Karen, if they don't give him exactly what he wants.
He has screenshots of Karen giving addresses, and Nick was like, yeah. And he's like, this is extortion, this is blackmail. And he's like, and who's going to help us? The state, who are we going to go to? He's like, the state police don't want to do anything. But my thing is, the state police will do anything to lock him up. So if they want to, they'll get him on extortion charges before they try to get Karen Reed on conspiracy of a screenshot of Signal apps. But I can't go around.
So just to another expand on this. So Karen from day one was nervous about communications. Look, when you're nervous about communications, you're usually doing something shady, right? So initially she would only communicate with Turtleboy through the intermediary of Natalie, Karen's friend. And then eventually she learned about this encryption app called Signal, and the messages are set to disappear like after 30 minutes or something like that. So she felt, so that's how she communicates with everybody. I don't know if the police are able to break in to that encryption and get those messages at all. And we also know that Karen wiped her phone last January too. But Turtle made screenshots of Karen sending him the addresses of the people that were going to be targeted, the witnesses that were going to be targeted inside the rolling rally, which we've already had other people say that Karen had a role in conceiving and planning. Now that's classic witness intimidation. And if they can find those messages, if they have them at all, it's going to be very difficult for her to avoid a conspiracy charge on witness intimidation. And that's what rumored the grand jury is meeting on that and has been meeting on that for a couple months. So we'll see where it goes, but that's what she's talking about here. And Jen is trying to decide how they can handle this without harming Karen. And so she's basically suggesting here that if you if you take these screenshots of this and go to the police, they might be willing to use them to go after Turtle, but not Karen. But actually, I'm sorry, I take that back. I think Jenna was trying to say not to bring the screen. Well, let's just let her see it. But that's what she's strategizing over here.
On saying he has screenshots of Karen Reed. What I will say is he is claiming to have incriminating evidence. I won't say that. I would say he's threatening to actually go to Brian Tully is what I'll say.
All right, so here's what she's trying to do. She's trying to get away where they can go to the police and say that Turtleboy is trying to blackmail Karen, but she's trying to think of a way to do it where they don't imply that there is any actual evidence to blackmail Karen, which doesn't really make sense because Turtleboy wouldn't be able to blackmail Karen unless he had that kind of evidence. But that's what Jen is wrestling with here.
Because I don't want people to know that he actually has something. You know what I mean? So I will continue to say he's threatening to go to Brian Tully. But Karen has known this because while he wasn't doing that publicly, he has told Nick, I'm going to Brian Tully. And Nick told Karen. And every time she says, what am I going to do? She's like, I'm not going to back down anymore. I'm being charged for murder. I'm not scared of anybody or anything. Fucking let him. So we'll see what she wants to do now that he wants to post screenshots. Alan was like, just hold off on it until after court tomorrow. He's like, I don't know what he has to the extent of what he has. But the thing is, they already took Karen's phone and it was from Signal that he has screenshots. And I don't know, he's only sent 2, but he's been sending the same one over and over. So he must not have any more. And it doesn't even have her phone number on it. And he would get locked up for extortion before she would ever get charged with conspiracy to intimidate witnesses. Because the thing is, if she gets a charge, she gets bail revoked. So it's really a sticky situation. But as long as people know. So then now if he's going to come out and say, oh yeah, Jenna's just mad because I said I was going to write a blog about her, I would say fucking write the blog. I'm mad because you are threatening to go to Brian Tully. And if he's like, oh yeah, there's no proof of that, whatever.
There's only about a couple minutes left in this and we'll finish it up. And then actually I'll bring Kate on. Well, she can hear it. Kate's waiting. So I just want to say too, this is a big thing. This is one of the reasons that I fight so hard against Aidenism. It has nothing to do with a personal animosity towards Aiden. I could care less about this little dude, you know? But this thing he does here where he says, I'm going to blog about you. He does this every week to multiple people. And not just him, his henchman there, the pit bull, does it too. And I have screenshots, Mrs. Altman, if you want to challenge me on this, of you doing it. Yes, I have the screenshots where you threaten to use an embarrassing picture. And this is with a Free Karen Reed person, but who they wanted to get to play ball with her. So this is what they've learned over time, that they can control people because their power to smear them in front of the social media mob. And it's effective. There are lawyers all over this state that won't take them on because they're afraid to be smeared or afraid to have a family member smeared. And look at how when Hank Brennan took them on, the first thing they did within hours was go after his wife. All right. So even if you're a Free Karen Reed person, if you have any intelligence, you have to understand the danger of what Aidenism is, of what they are doing to try to silence people, to try to change their testimony with the powerful threat of social media smear. That is the threat of social media smear is more powerful than the threat to beat somebody up. For most people in today's world, they are more terrified of that than the idea of getting beat up. So this is what they have self-consciously wielded every day. I've seen it. I have screenshotted examples of other cases too. And I'm sure I only got a tiny taste of it. This is how they try to control people. And this is what has to be stopped, regardless of what happens in the Karen Reed case.
I'll send screenshots of him saying that because he has said it in text. And even if not, I'll be like, this isn't about a blog about me. Fucking write it. Like, write the blog. Nick was telling him the whole phone call, fucking write the blog, dude. He was like, you really care about Karen, Nick? This is about Karen? Then you'll fucking do anything to protect Karen, right? So you wouldn't want me doing this, right? Like, because after he said he was going to do it. And Nick immediately put it on mute and was like, Jenna, I have to fucking call Karen. This is up to her. And I was like, you should have fucking hung up like 10 minutes ago before he even said anything. Because number one, when he does that, that's the end of his career. Number two, he could go to jail for it. And number three, it wouldn't be your fault. But truly, the last thing Nick wants is to see Karen in trouble. So he sucked it up and let Michelle fucking Ormond. It could be anybody but her, but I fucking hate her. He let her stay as an admin, and he's keeping everything the way it is for now. He might make him a mod and take Michelle and that other person off. And that wasn't the terms and conditions of his extortion. He said, you're going to take yourself off or I'm going to do this. That was also one of his things. He was saying everything. If you don't listen to everything, then I'm going to do this. Because I'm not doing this because he said he wants to write a blog. About me. I fucking told him to write the fucking blog. And he was telling Nick, control your bitch, control your girl in the background. I'm not talking to her. I'm talking to you. It was a very bad phone call. So he's going to try to say that I'm doing this because I don't want him to write a blog. But I'm going to let everybody know that he's a piece of shit and he's threatening to go to Brian Tully. And we'll see how much people really want to follow him then. We'll see what happens then. Because I don't want to be like Meredith and be stupid and be like, look, guys, he has screenshots of Karen Reed. Like, that's the dumbest thing ever. So just be careful with what you say and remember just that he's claiming that he has, that not even that he has anything. He's claiming to go to Brian Tully. You don't even have to say anything, but just be careful with what you say. Never admit that he has anything, because that's the whole point of this. Don't be like Meredith. Hashtag what about Meredith? Hashtag don't be a Meredith.
Okay. I'm going to bring in Kate in 2 seconds, just really quick, guys. This is for my mods. So one of our regulars, Francesca, said she's having trouble posting. So I doubt that you guys blocked her, but just look and make sure you didn't accidentally time out Francesca. You guys know who she is. So I think it's probably nothing to do with anything that we did. Sometimes YouTube is weird. We couldn't figure out for a couple of weeks, Karen McCormick, she could post, but it wouldn't show up. It wouldn't stop her from posting, but no one could see. I don't know exactly what happened. So I made her a mod so she's good now. Oh, okay. So Tom said he found it and took care of it. Okay, very good. Let me bring in the one and only Kate Peter. Hey, Kate. I don't hear your mic, so
I muted myself. Sorry.
there you go.
Yeah, we're good now. All right.
Yeah.
How's it going, Kevin?
Going very good. Thank you. I wish, well, you're probably not a football fan, but I wish the Patriots lost today. But
yeah, I'm not a football fan, though.
Yeah. So, anyways, welcome. So, for anybody, please, if you can go to Mass Troll Mafia and see not only this video but the other ones that she's done on this, it's really excellent work. Mass Hole Mafia. I'm sorry, I said it wrong.
Yeah, that's all right.
So, I don't know. What are you thinking about all this stuff? You got anything new to add?
I think it's fascinating. So I originally had put this in an edited, more like long form video, right? And I only picked out bits and pieces that I thought really kind of showed how incriminating these statements were, and then sort of the inner workings, the level of collusion here, because it's a situation to where, Turtleboy is intimidating and harassing these witnesses, and Karen is aware of it enough to give him these addresses. We now know for sure, right? Like, here you go. Here are the witnesses' addresses, which clearly I think we can connect to the rolling rally. But just in general, he's driven by their homes how many times, right?
Mm-hmm.
Gone to their doors. Like, she clearly knows that he's going to do these things and is assisting. And so that's conspiracy, right? Yeah. And Jenna Rocco is aware of this, obviously. And, we're taking her word for it. So I do want to be fair with that and say that there is a possibility in this that Jenna Rocco is lying. I don't see it as a probability or even a very high possibility, because the context of this is she's in a group chat with only 2 other women.
Right. She's not trying to spread
it. Right. Their trust. And it's not so much a gossip fest. It's we need to control this, meeting of the minds here. So I don't think that she's lying, but this is secondhand information.
And it's exactly what Nick was telling me in person too. Again, it doesn't prove it, but
I've gotten independent corroboration about these screenshots. I can say with 99.9% certainty that it's real, right? Based on what I know. What's concerning to me, and I guess what kind of was like, it's, they all know, right? And so the reaction when they're worried about this coming out is not like, wow, we should really get a damper on this criminal behavior, or maybe we shouldn't be involved with this anymore, or Aiden's threatening to turn Karen in. I don't want anything to do with that, right? Like, that's between, the two of them. They immediately intercede and essentially start colluding to figure out how to cover this up, which I find to be just a staggering irony. Right? When the crux of their entire movement is accusing the police, the prosecutors, the judges, the witnesses, everybody of colluding and covering up. And, of course, the cult is kind of minimizing this. Oh, this is old news. I mean, so is Jen McCabe's Google search, right? Like, comparatively, if it's old news,
except that didn't happen.
Well, I know, but it didn't happen. Well, one did, 6/24. But my point is that, like, with something like this, there's no expiration date on it. This is Jenna Rocco specifically implicating Karen Reed in conspiracy to commit witness intimidation. So it doesn't matter that it was back in May that this occurred. It's timely today because prior to this, nobody knew this information, and now it's in the public. Karen Reed has been implicated directly by one of her top supporters for being involved with this conspiracy to intimidate and harass witnesses. That's a huge deal, right? Huge deal. Mm-hmm. And there's some sort of misconception that they've been putting out that I just put this out to try to cause division, and, like, respectfully, no. I mean, you can't get any more divided than when one person is literally extorting another, right? And I had nothing to do with that. Obviously, all parties involved know that it happened because they were all involved with it. So putting it out now, certainly my intention was not to cause any division. It was to inform the public that, it's another piece to the puzzle. Even more strong evidence that implicates Karen Reed in the intimidation of witnesses.
And just, a lesson for anybody out there who wants to form any kind of a partnership, relationship, anything with Aiden Kearney. This is what's going to happen eventually. If he gets annoyed in some way, he's going to try to destroy you. So just because Karen didn't ask him into court, which was certainly understandable considering his behavior, the fact that he was indicted, the fact that he had spent, 30 days in jail, whatever. There's no way he had to understand that she was not going to have him in court. But no, he's not mature enough to understand that. So when he's unhappy, and Karen has nothing to do with who goes on court TV. So because he's upset about this stuff, he's going to try to throw her completely under the bus. What else do you need to know about this guy?
Right.
I mean,
well, yeah. And certainly, like, I think my next video will probably get into a little bit more of that stuff as far as, what happens, because I'm kind of the authority on the subject with that. But I think, like, and I know that you like the Roccos, and I don't know them, so I can't make a lot of, like, I just don't know them. However, they go on court TV and say that 3 liters of blood were found in the basement, and that's not true. They go out and they call these people murderers with no evidence. At one point they did go down to D&E Pizza and engaged in some disruptive, harassing behavior themselves. Now, granted, they only did it once, right? So they certainly could be a lot worse, but they have been very, very active in promoting this theory of Karen's. And I understand, and I think I was even at this point once where I was like, well, they must really believe it. Now to hear in Jenna's own words, though, that they're aware that Karen is breaking the law, committing a crime, right? And that the likelihood of being charged for that is pretty high if the police find out this information. Their impulse was not to even second guess anything. Just, we have to roll with this and protect Karen at all costs. So it makes me wonder a little bit more. Do they believe what they're saying, or are they just saying it because Karen wants them to?
Well, I think there's the whole sunk cost fallacy thing that's natural with any human person. Once you've invested this much into something with all of your energy and all of your emotion and all of your time as they have, it's going to be hard to move away from that. I think they probably, if you were to ask them, would say that even if Karen was involved with intimidating the witnesses or the rolling rally, that she was doing it because she believes that they're guilty, or something. I mean, there are ways to get around it. And as far as
I think they're disingenuous, and they were also part of the Canton Nine too, right? Like, so, I mean,
right, and there's also a learning curve here too, is what I would say to that. That was during the summer. Listen, I think Nick is a very intelligent guy, but I don't think he's sophisticated in the sense that he hasn't thought about legal issues ever before in his life, or any of this stuff, or moral issues. This is very, very much outside of his normal lane up until this point. And so I believe that there's probably been some growth on those kind of things. When I say that like when you say that I like the Roccos, I just want to be clear. I don't know Jenna. She came across to me in the admin chat that I read on the air a couple months ago as kind of the adult in the room. But whether or not I like her or not, I don't really know her. I met Nick twice, and I've been on Court TV with him. The guy that I met, I liked. But then again, you might meet Turtleboy in a certain situation once, and you say you like the guy, but you don't know anything about him. I might like, you might like a serial killer if you met him once. I don't really know them. You know what I'm saying? I just want to be fair and not try to demonize everybody involved in this case. I believe that they're sincere. I believe that they really do believe in this cause, and they haven't tried to, that I can see, try to benefit themselves.
No, I don't think that they've tried to benefit. The only kind of lingering question is some odd statements that have been made and some odd, things in some of those chats regarding some of the fundraising that would maybe leave a question mark right now, but nothing that I would feel comfortable saying in public, honestly. So at this point, yeah, but I mean, it's hard to listen to that and go, oh no, everything's above board. They're just sincere people trying to do the right thing, because there are a million ways that you can handle a situation like that don't involve.
I didn't say trying to do the right thing, but I just said sincere. But because for instance, I think like it bothered me hearing that stuff on Court TV. I would never do that. Sit there and be so casually accusing, just constantly reshaping the theory about who did what as though it's a fact. Like Michael Proctor, obviously he took that clothes and laundered it and stuff like that.
Right.
I mean, to me, it's irresponsible to be saying a lot of the things that he says, but I don't think it comes out of being, I've not seen signs of it being an indecent human being, just someone who's very intelligent, but unsophisticated in that he hasn't really thought about its ethical issues before in his life. I don't know if that makes sense, but
it does. I mean, I don't know. Like I said, I have some question marks, and especially, because I didn't put out a lot of the actual like chats there, just those. But I think I put one on Twitter where, Nick was the one apparently allegedly here that talked to AJ, Alan Jackson. And, Alan Jackson tells him point blank, well, if this stuff is posted online, like Karen's going to get locked up. Right. So they're aware of this too. So, I mean, at that point, you're making an active decision to cover this up. And what else are you covering for at this point? And of course, like the shifting story, he always has a script when he goes onto Court TV. And if something is debunked or kind of falls apart, he just rolls on with the next thing, I'm sure by Karen's direction. And during this feud, Turtleboy accused them of much in a Facebook post and said, I know you're copying and pasting, all of Karen's messages and putting them up, whatever she wants you to post, because that used to be me, right? Like he literally said that. And I believe him in that instance. That is probably accurate. He tends to be a little bit more honest when he's extra vindictive and angry about this sort of stuff, right? And I think the only thing that really put the skids on this and stopped it from becoming a bigger thing is that, and Karen seems to understand this for the whole thing too. He really couldn't have turned her into Tully because he would have then been implicating himself too, right? There's some mutually assured destruction there. But in making the threats, now the conversations are being had in text and voice message recorded, obviously. And I saw it in the chat earlier. No, this was not a recorded phone call. Jenna Rocco was on Facebook. She recorded the message herself and she sent it to this group chat with two other people in there. So it's completely legal. and can be passed around forever. It was an incredibly unwise move, but this is what happens in real attempts at conspiracy, right? That's why
Yeah.
we often hear about them. This is how they unravel. Too many people, and they talk to each other, and they leave clues everywhere, and this person hears this person, and all of a sudden you hear the same story from 5 different places, and you realize it probably has some credence. And that consistently happens with Free Karen Reed. Consistently. If you look at the volume of information that I've been able to get put on my channel, hand over to authorities, whatever else, like, I mean, it's mostly coming from the same issue, which is just constant leaks within their group.
I want to play a little bit. You probably have already seen this, but we just play a few seconds. Jen had posted this. So I want to just look at his eyes, and you know him personally.
Okay.
I mean, this, oh, let's see. I'm sorry. I got the right. Here we go. This seems to be like somebody that's coming apart at the seams.
That's why this shit offends me, because his cancer is fake. He has fake terminal cancer. He's not dying now. He was never dying. And Michelle K can go fuck herself, ban this woman from the chat. You
That's
don't tell me to
followers.
move on, Michelle, okay? This is my show. I will rant about Plevin being a fucking worthless piece of shit.
Look at his
lying
eyes.
about cancer for 4 hours if I feel like. And you will sit there and fucking eat that shit, won't you? You will swallow every single second of it, and you will go nowhere. Nobody tells me what to say on the show. Nobody. Get rid of them. Get them out of here. Mods, ban these motherfuckers with their...
I mean, he's fucking drooling spittle on his mouth. He looks like an insane person. What kind of person watches that show and supports it?
He is
I
an
don't
insane
understand
person.
it.
He doesn't just look like, he looks like one because he is one. He's a fucking crazy person. Yeah.
What kind of person moderates that show? People, he's yelling at his moderators there. What kind of human being moderates that? We know the pit bull, but she's not really a human being. So
I've never, I mean, and again, that's crazy to me. I just operate differently. I have people that come in my chat and say all sorts of horrendous shit about me all the time. I'd never toss them out, ever.
Well, those are your friends.
What's that?
No, I was just teasing you. I said, those are your friends.
Some of them are my friends. Yeah, no, that's fair. But no, I let all the turtle people come in and say whatever they want to say. Like, very rarely do I want them tossed. Usually you really got to be aggressively stupid for like an extended period of time before I will get annoyed and want to toss you. That doesn't happen that often. But yeah, I mean, this is just like, it's like another day that ends in Y for Aiden Carney. He cannot tolerate any sort of dissent, disagreement. Like, I don't know. How do you unravel when you started out that way anyway? Like just, you know,
he just like, to be like, if I was doing that in an argument, I wouldn't do it. Not just because it's indecent, but it's kind of like if you're a kid in the schoolyard and you get in an argument and you go and someone gives a real good zinger at you, go, well, your mama smells. You just lost the argument by saying that. You know, you're just saying, I can't think of anything good, so I just said something stupid. And this is another clear sign that they just don't have a leg to stand on. They don't have the arguments, you know.
And I've seen a lot of that. Like I said, like, you know, they've argued the timeliness of these messages. I think that's really irrelevant. And May is actually pretty timely in the you know, context of a presumably ongoing criminal investigation, right? Like, that's probably not great. And then of course, like beyond at how just, you are lying, Kate. I got a lot of, when I just played the just the voice messages on my channel, right? Like, put it up, isolated, uncut. There you go. I still got comments on there like, you're lying. This is not my voice. That is not me at all. I have not said one word in this. This is all Jenna Rocco, who, again, like, I will concede it is a possibility that she is lying. And I only say that because I was not involved in this or there or witnessed any of it directly. So I don't know, but I don't see any of the markers of someone who is lying in terms of, you know, I don't see the motivation to lie. I don't think that the environment in which this, you know, communication is occurring really invites lies. I've heard this story consistently from other people. And Aiden's own behavior and statements during this time period corroborates what they're saying privately too. So, I mean, that's Jenna Rocco's words, and that's Jenna Rocco's words clearly spoken out of not, you know, any desire to get Karen in any trouble or anything like that, but to protect her, which really, to me, indicates that she's being honest. So I mean, that's all her. That's her words. And I mean, anyone who listens to that and isn't concerned about what they're involved in, I don't know what to tell them.
So coming up in the near future, we have looks like a Dauber hearing on Rich Green.
Yes. Well,
We got
maybe that's a maybe, because he's put in a motion for it to either exclude him or have a hearing. There's no guarantee that the judge is going to. She may just exclude him. She may have a hearing. She may deny both. I think that more likely than not, she'll probably want to hear for a hearing, but it's not a guarantee at this point. Just to be clear. Yeah.
Right. And then we got the continuation this Tuesday, I think, of the Dauber of Dr. Russell. Is that this Tuesday?
Yeah, that's Tuesday. Yeah.
So there weren't many other witnesses. You got Dr. Sheridan. Are we going to see a Dauber hearing of Dr. Sheridan? Is he? Do
you think he's coming back?
I don't know. I mean, they got to have someone.
I bet he doesn't even want to come back. If I were him, I would not want to come back.
Yeah.
Honestly.
And then we got the ARCA guys, which is kind of a strange situation because they're defense witnesses, but they're billed as independent witnesses. So I don't know.
Yeah, I know that they've asked at this point. The only thing on the docket for that is that they've asked for reciprocal discovery from them. So I guess we'll see what happens with that.
Right. You think the defense will try to? Well, I mean, they weren't able to find. Well, first of all, they weren't. Dr. Sheridan, he seemed like a lovely guy to me. He seemed like a nice guy, but clearly an older guy, And Dr. Russell didn't emerge. They could, even though that was their main theory, they couldn't find her until the middle of the trial.
Right.
So are they having trouble finding expert witnesses?
I would assume so, that are going to say what they want them to say. I mean, obviously, and I mean, she's a doctor, Dr. Maria Russell. So I'm certainly not saying this with any sort of attitude or belief that I am more competent or capable or educated than this woman. Clearly not, but common sense would dictate that if you want someone to testify about dog bites, right, you probably want someone with qualifications specific to dog bites. She's an emergency room doctor, right? And obviously her career is a little bit marred by some issues that could undermine her credibility. Her methodology in this case is kind of questionable. She showed up again halfway through the trial, didn't even write a report, right? Like if I were on Karen Reed's team, I would want to find somebody more like Jim Crosby, right? To testify that those are dog bites, but they can't find anybody even close. And I think that says a lot right there.
Yeah. So what can we say about the vehicle data? What might we expect without, obviously, I don't have any inside information, but I'm just saying, what could we expect might a range of possibilities here that could come forward with it?
For telematics?
Yeah, for just anything in the new vehicle.
So for the chip off, right? So obviously they were hoping for some GPS information that kind of gives a clearer line. I mean, I believe that it could pick up if she's connected to Wi-Fi or not with the car. Certainly some more in-depth incident information, or what do they call them, triggering events. It is possible on some models they have backup cams that record. I would be shocked if that turns out. I mean, that would be literally a case under. I don't think that's going to happen. But I mean, just in general, I suppose, they've got what they've got from Toyota TechStream. And so doing that chip off and getting more information, I would assume, is just going to kind of deepen the information they already have with the vehicle and probably assist in the accident reconstruction. Yeah, I would assume. Yeah.
I know you and I maybe agree this a little bit on this, but I think the accident reconstruction that the state is going to have to bring in is crucial. You have to explain. You don't have to explain every aspect of the injury. But you have to explain at least hypothetically, with somewhat convincing explanation, the cause of the injuries that ultimately prove fatal, in addition to the hypothermia. And if the defense's main focus, which has been for over a year before the first trial, that it was that there were dog bites in the arm, you kind of have to at least have an explanation as to how you say on the state side those injuries were caused.
Oh yeah, absolutely, yeah. And I think judging from the sort of the CVs and the witnesses that we're seeing kind of pop up in filings right now, clearly Hank Brennan sees that, right? And is attending to that pretty quickly, because they have now the biomechanical engineer, Judson B. Welcher, right? And he is the vice president at Aperture and just as qualified as the guys from ARCA, and obviously has the benefit of having all of the information available to him, which I think is going to be pretty big. And also, ARCA reserved the right to be able to amend their report in the future. So for all we know, maybe they are being provided more information. I guess we'll find out, right? I think, the big issue with ARCA right now is that the state is entitled to reciprocal discovery from them. So we'll see what happens with that, because if they can't get it, that would, potentially pose an issue for them testifying again.
So you get into some weird constitutional issues here, right? Because you have dual sovereignty and you have the protective order signed by, involving evidence. I don't know, is ARCA, because they were technically hired by the feds, are they allowed to give over, for instance, communications they got from the feds?
Well, I don't know. I think that's what needs to be litigated right now. So like I said, the only thing on the docket right now, and this is from a little while ago, this isn't like super current, but the only thing that was on the docket was this request for reciprocal discovery with some very specific questions and some very specific asks. So the judge obviously needs to take a look at, I think, and rule on that, and then go from there as to what exactly they are entitled for reciprocal discovery, and then see if they can actually get it.
I was intrigued by one of the questions on that motion was for what information they've been sent. They were sent after the trial. And so you wonder who might have sent them that. Was it the feds? Was it it could have been the state of Massachusetts that actually sent that information, because it sets them up where you can say, all right, let's say Lally sent them over the text stream data after the trial. And then you're going to ask him the next time we see him in court, did you review that? Did you get that text stream data? Did you review it? Right. I don't know if that's part of the strategy of why he sent it.
Well, I mean, I think probably part of it is just honestly because you are entitled to that reciprocal discovery. And, same thing with he had made a similar request for Dr. Russell, who, technically came in as a Rule 14 violation anyway. She was obviously allowed. And that's what I think, like, I like that Hank's, his asks are really kind of pinpoint and specific. So he's not asking to like throw the baby out with the bathwater with most of these witnesses. He's just really narrowing their testimony to what they're qualified to testify to, and feel that out. And I think that it's fair. So, with Rick Green, he's not trying to toss Rick Green out altogether, just simply exclude testimony based on those very two limited things, the Google search and the deletions, and sort of, have a Daubert hearing to make sure that he's qualified to talk about anything else. So I think that's pretty fair. Yeah.
What do you think about the seeming upcoming change in U.S. attorneys?
It's all politics to me. I don't think, the agency is the agent. And I know that you've had some conversations with somebody who knows better than I do by far, right? And Rachel Rollins, as far as how that agency operates, right? So, I mean, I know a lot of personal animus and feelings towards Josh Levy. I'm not a fan, just based on everything that I've seen, but I do acknowledge that he's sort of a spoke in the wheel, so to speak, right? Like, this is just business as usual for them, unfortunately. And I think a lot of the time it happens and we don't know about it at all, because it's a lot better hidden than it was in this case, because Karen Reed had such a specific agenda with her involvement, with the feds and with this investigation, right, which was to push it out to the media. I'm sure that doesn't happen all the time, but it seems to me like, this maybe isn't as unusual as we would like it to be with the DOJ.
So, and obviously I'm guessing too, and this does not come from Rachel Rollins, just to be clear. I talked to her a couple of times, but what I'm going to say now has nothing to do with that. So I speculate, so if you look at someone that's going to come in and take over, and especially if it's someone appointed by a different party, different president,
right?
In order for them to want to dig into this and maybe make something public, make a statement or reveal something, there has to be, it's politics, like you said, so there has to be something in it for them. So is there potential for them to look at wrongdoing by their predecessor? And then, that's what I'm hoping for, but I don't know if they'll look at it that way.
Right. I don't know. Honestly, I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Anything else you got going on you want to talk about?
No, I know. I was kind of trying to keep hold of the chat because I see some people have some questions. I know that people had asked about a possible grand jury, to indict them. So I just want to be clear that those are secret proceedings. I don't know. I would never have that information. I do, and I put this sort of in the long format video because it's pretty easy. If you watch all the court hearings, just like with any case, and you read the filings, and then we have the benefit also with Turtleboy and his associates making these statements in public all the time, it's easy to piece together sort of what happened there. So, they tried to push off the taint team protocol for a very long time. And they did so through, these games of like, oh, stop the search. We need a taint team. No, push it back, argue over privilege, argue over search terms. So that has held up anything in his phones being able to be used in court. And this because of some of the Federal letters, as well as if you actually read them, as well as statements that Turtleboy has made in public, right? That they made an agreement, and that the contents of those phones cannot be used against him or in court at all until after the taint team reviews them. So what we need to see happen, and the process has started here, is we need to see the taint team review those materials, identify privileged materials, redact them, and hand them over to the court for review. If everything goes well, then possibly the 10th even, because they've had a month now to go through and work on this with the taint team. It was signed in last court date. It's a possibility that they could kind of wrap up that review, and then they would be moving forwards towards being able to use what's in the phone. It is my gut feeling and instinct here that those indictments are probably pretty contingent on the materials that they've found on Aiden's devices. So
when is that next hearing? Because that's when they're supposed to inform the court, and when if the taint team has completed their work,
10th.
right?
Yeah,
it's on the 10th.
Yep.
And today's the 5th, though. 5 days from now. All right. So is that Friday?
Is it
Friday?
Yeah, I think it is Friday.
Yeah.
I think it is.
All right. Interesting. So if the judge agrees, then what the results they get from the taint team would go forward from there to
the Commonwealth, right? Yeah. And I this is my understanding of it. I would be surprised, honestly. Like, I don't know. I think that probably what we'll see on the 10th is that Aiden and his defense are probably going to try to litigate the search terms further. Like, it just seems to me to be one gigantic delay tactic.
Yeah.
Because I think it's pretty obvious at this point. We don't obviously know the extent of what's in his devices, but his behavior, the statements that are being made, the behavior of the group really indicates that there's at least some stuff on there that's probably not great for him or Karen Reed. And that's the goal here. Is like, I think that in order for this to stop and be put under control, Karen Reed needs to be held accountable for the witness intimidation, because she's been such a key figure in it the entire time, and she's the one pulling the strings. And if she's de-incentivized from doing that, then we could see a reduction in it, because she's no longer giving these orders and pulling these strings. So
what do you think about the conduct of her attorneys in this case?
I am not an attorney. Like, I understand that a lot of people have, like, I see it on my channel all the time, like these really high expectations for sort of the ethical requirements that attorneys have. And I obviously have quite a few attorneys in my little group there. Like, so I know, because they've told me a lot of the time that no, like you don't really have to be a good person to be an attorney. There are rules that they need to follow. The most egregious, really, as far as these professional rules go, usually is mishandling money, which I don't believe is happening here necessarily. Arguably, have they lied to the court? Yes.
Not in a way. It's they've clearly danced up as far as up to the edge as they could.
Right.
They know where the line is.
When you say that those are definitely John McCabe's kids and they're not, and you probably know
non-human hairs.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I think when you say that the U.S. Attorney's Office told you that they cannot in good conscience let this go to trial, and then they come out later and say, like, no, we never said that. That's a lie. That's not just dancing. But the bigger issue, I don't know how involved nobody does, how involved they were with this whole Turtleboy, Karen, witness intimidation, social media scheme.
There were dozens of calls with
right.
Turtle, so that's pretty involved.
I think it's unusual. I don't know the contents of the calls, right? Or how much they were or weren't doing. I know that raffling off dinners with yourself and your client is weird and raises some eyebrows. I know obviously some of the socializing that they've been caught on camera doing, especially Jackson and Karen Reed, questionable, unethical. I think that I think there's probably consequences for them down the line with this too, because I don't think that the other attorneys, especially Yannetti being in the state, but like, you know, I hear that he used to have a really good reputation. He was respected. He was liked. I hear that that has in a lot of circles waned now, and that there's some speculation that, you know, there may be some complaints to the BBO in his future. So we'll see, you know.
He actually sometimes has tagged me on Twitter now, and he seemed to have followed the video. I know you and I talked about it on the phone. I don't think we've talked about it on the air, though, since then. What do you think about that story in the Globe? At first, it was a video, and then in a couple of days, it was a story about the cost of a third trial.
I don't know. I don't know if he's got anyone at the Globe. See, this is where we kind of differ, because I just don't know. I know that I've noticed with the media in general, and it's not specific to any one outlet, just across the board. For instance, when they were making the allegations that Jen made that search at 227, when it would come up in court, even when it was, you know, came up at trial, like she was getting requests for comment every day from everybody, right? Yeah. So the Commonwealth puts out this motion, and it has some pretty bombshell information about Celebrate changing their program and this search no longer existing, and the senior intelligence analyst, right, from Celebrate saying, you know, with absolute certainty this search never happened. Crickets, right? They barely cover it. They even in the articles that were written, tiny little blurb about, you know, the motion and the arguments and the information contained within, and then this much about the conspiracy theory. Like, I think unfortunately the media has just slanted to this, and they're not swinging back, no matter how much new information comes out, no matter how much we feel like, you know, the tides might be turning. It's not for the media at all.
Somebody pointed out to me today that in that Boston Globe video, that the narrator actually described the Free Karen Reed movement as organic.
It's not. I mean, that's the thing is, you know,
I mean,
it's not.
It's obvious. I mean, that's even part of that's the story here for a lot of people. This is a Turtleboy thing. You can't be in the media and not be aware of that. They are aware of it. That's why I say that story just feels, and it's just really strange to even 5 months before the second trial. Since when does the Boston Globe care about the cost of a trial?
I know.
Bizarre, you know? And so I just can't help. Obviously, I can't prove that there was a connection there.
And I can't disprove it either. I'm skeptical about that, and I'm more, I guess, jaded, but I feel like it's just, you know, the media trying to roll on this stupid conspiracy train, even when they're running out of material. Because, like, while the prosecution is filing motion after motion and going after all this new information and finding new experts and making new asks and, you know, really kind of putting some scrutiny on the witnesses, I mean, the experts from last time for the defense, they've got all this movement. The defense is not doing anything really, right? Like they're pretty stagnant. So if you're trying to cover this from a pro-defense, pro-conspiracy standpoint, like, I guess all that's left is to complain about the cost to the taxpayers for the fucking for the trial, right? Because, like, what else are you going to talk about right now?
Well, it's funny. Yannetti talked about that, responded to that, and he said, "Boy, this David Yannetti guy must be a pretty powerful guy." And I said, "I've noticed you're not denying it."
Right.
So I don't know. I mean, listen, this is a guy that worked as a prosecutor in Boston for 10 years, right? And then has been a defense lawyer for another 10 years. You don't do that, without developing connections, including with Josh Levy, apparently. So
I think that if it comes out, or, you know, I don't know. I have a skepticism to, I guess, to the credit of the Globe. I would be skeptical that, you know, we've got now journalists that are somehow colluding to you know, essentially become like a part of Karen Reed's defense. I don't know that that's the case. I know that Boston Globe and all these other outlets, especially through the trial, learned what was going to get attention and what wasn't, though. I don't know. You could be right. I don't know.
Who knows?
Yeah.
But it certainly is the strategy, right? Like, barring some new unforeseen evidence coming out, uncovered by the feds or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. Right.
You had 9 jurors vote guilty last time. Seemingly,
Right.
none of them bought into the conspiracy theory,
Right.
despite a fairly ineffective case presentation by the prosecution. So there is really no chance you're going to get 12 jurors to acquit, barring some new unforeseen dramatic
Yeah.
information coming forward. So isn't the strategy have to be you got to hope out you're praying for a hung jury and then hope you can make the case that they shouldn't try her again? That's too expensive.
That was their swing this time, and I think they took a big swing with putting it all the way up to the SJC. I don't think that is going to go anywhere. I don't think that has. I mean, they're literally. I mean, it's a novel issue, so they're literally asking the SJC like, "Hey, you need to change the laws." And I think I've had this conversation with you too. I don't think the justification is there. I think that obviously the question of like the jury pooling, less so the jury pooling even than she didn't get the defense to consent to the mistrial. I think that's probably going to be overruled, the fact that there was manifest necessity right at this point. But just because they're pushing for the instructions and just because they're kind of pushing things along the defense, it's not the same thing as a mistrial. So that might be something they nitpick a lot, but I don't think she's getting anything overturned. I think she's facing the same charges this time she did the last time. And I think too that I don't know that they're going to have the same magic with the jury pool as they did the first time along. Not only is the media not really picking up on the Commonwealth case or whatever, but they're not really covering this case very much at all anymore, right? Comparatively.
Yeah. Do you think the state is going to be a little bit more cautious about trying to weed out turtle riders from the jury, which did happen on the first jury, at least at the very least, the dismissed juror was?
I would hope so.
And I'm not one of those people that think that the only people that didn't vote for guilty were turtle riders. No, and actually, the one that Turtleboy interviewed that was not guilty on all 3, I didn't find anything that she said to be unreasonable, and I thought it to be kind of. I had no disrespect for her service. I think she seemed. Maybe that conversation was filtered or something. I don't know, but based on what we saw in that conversation, it seemed to be a reasonable person that was diligently trying to do their best to determine the facts.
Right.
So hopefully the state, but there certainly we had the dismissed juror, and then there was the juror that became an alt, and then the next day showed up in court in pink. That's and was crying.
Yeah, I'm hoping that they, another possibility is maybe looking at a change of venue. I don't know. I mean, that's the only thing I think left to be concerned about if you're hoping for, if your form of justice is a conviction, as mine is the jury pool. But I just don't feel like they're going to have the same. Their numbers are dwindling. More information is coming out. God forbid if Karen Reed. I shouldn't say God forbid, God willing, really. If Karen Reed gets indicted between now and April, and so then at that point the indictment goes unsealed and people get to see the allegations in there too, I think it's going to hurt her case more than it's going to help it if there's more information about sort of what was going on, because obviously we know from some of the filing from one of the jurors or even the interview with they were a lot of the jurors were struck and concerned and unhappy with the little bit of illusion that they heard about the harassment, right, and the intimidation. Mm-hmm. So certainly if that's expounded upon with a brand new indictment, that's not going to help her at all.
I'm not so sure, because the thing is most people follow these things very superficially. So even though there's going to be specific information in there, like you're talking about, assuming there is an indictment that really implicates some wrong behavior on her part, it's all how Channel 5 covers it. It's all how Howie Carr covers it and what little they hear. And it just, because to me already right now, that if anybody that looked at this case in depth, most of those people are going to say there's no conspiracy here.
Right.
But I'm hearing that even educated, intelligent people in all kinds of professions, most of them seem to believe that Karen is innocent. And this is because they just have a superficial understanding of it,
I just don't hear the same. And I mean, I've heard from, other people, or even seen on Twitter, that there are some people that are more neutral going, yeah, no, I was in a room full of lawyers the other day and they all think she did something. Cops all think she did something. Like, I don't think necessarily that it is as widespread as, and there's still a lot of people that honestly have not heard about or care about this case at all. like even though nobody in it wants to admit that, the truth is that this is not the biggest case of the century or even the year, really. I mean, there have been a lot bigger ones, and that's just the reality of it.
Right.
I mean, they were able to find jurors that didn't know much about this at all, if anything. Like, you know, some did to varying degrees, but I don't know. I think that, you know, some of that might come in the trial, though. Like, unfortunately for Karen now, particularly if there's another indictment where those doors can be opened, particularly with the witnesses. And I just think that it could be pretty bad for her. And then, of course, you know, the concern that I know that she has about her bail being revoked, although I will say that that's not ever a guarantee. It's extremely discretionary. People seem to look at the Turtleboy issue and just kind of assume that bail revocation is like automatic every time. And it's not. The situation with him was that he picked up a domestic violence case, and he ran from the law. Like, he didn't go in there with a very strong, you know, you can't say that it's nonviolent offense. Can't say that you don't pose a danger to the community. Like, I mean, right after you get indicted, you're doing something like that. Like, it's just but that doesn't mean that it is for everybody. Now, Karen probably has a higher chance of having her bail revoked than, you know, a lower level nonviolent crime or whatever else, but it's not a guarantee.
But you know, that's a good point. And I would think that there are strategic reasons for not revoking her bail. But as for argument's sake here, if she is charged with conspiracy to witness intimidation, it's intimidating witnesses in this case. So there would be a compelling reason to revoke her bail, I think.
But you know, again, it's not so much strategy, you know, because bail is not punitive in Massachusetts. So at no point are most bail decisions being made with any sort of strategy in mind. You know, this isn't a board game. You have rights, and there are sort of overarching principles that a lot of these courthouses adhere to in Massachusetts. One of them is that our courts don't love to lock people up, and that's a good thing. So, like, it's not so much a strategy thing or not. I would say that if she picks up a new charge, automatically the Commonwealth is going to move to revoke her bail. They do almost every time, right? With very few exceptions but it's the judge that has the discretion as to whether or not they revoke it. And just because they revoke it doesn't mean that you always get remanded either. So you could have your bail revoked and then a new bail immediately set. So they could say, okay, we're taking away your $100,000 bail and now you need to do it again. I don't know. I just think that in general, you know, both free Karen Read people and anti-free Karen Read people are working off this assumption with what an indictment would look like for her at this point, that neither option is really guaranteed. Most likely, yeah, because it's intimidation of witnesses in a murder case. And that, you know, not only is it a murder case that's serious, but because it's a murder case, the intimidation of the witness, the, you know, possible prison time is extended. So it's a likely possibility. But I mean, at the end of the day, I don't think that many people should be making it doesn't matter whether she gets her bail revoked or not, right? Like, you know, whether she's remanded or not, because it's a short-term thing. She's going to have to go to trial no matter what. Like, it was just weird to me the way that Nick and Jenna Rocco were so much like, we got to keep her out of jail. And on the other end, like, we got to send her to jail. It's not going to be substantial, even if her bail is revoked, right? Like, it's going to be shitty for her. Don't get me wrong. And like, it hopefully would put the brakes completely on a lot of this witness intimidation stuff. It might not, but it's not really, it's not a sentence. It's not justice, bail revocation.
Just to clarify, what I meant by strategic was not from that direction, where you make a decision that, all right, there's justification for revoking her bail, but because of the optics and how it might affect the impact of this case, you may decide because of that it's better off not just letting her wait a trial outside of jail. You know, because there could be a lot of furor and this public perception that the state is trying to silence someone, the state is trying to persecute somebody. So they could theoretically make that kind of a decision. Just say maybe it's more wise if we just wait till the trial.
Right. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. We'll see. I don't think they're not trying to persecute her. I think that's abundantly clear. They've given her like so much, almost too much courtesy in some cases. Like, and at some point, I think that the optics, the optics just can't matter that much. Nobody's happy when somebody they know gets locked up. Like that's just, I mean, they can't be making decisions based on this all the time. I just,
Right. Okay. Well, any other questions you see in chat that interest you or?
TJY asks, are you sure the judge has that discretion? Yes, the judge always has the discretion to revoke your bail. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Seeing a rare spat in chat. We don't usually have too many, but we'll just let them go though.
Yeah. It is what it is. I'm going to do a little bit more, I think, on the Google search at a later time too, because I noticed that the next thing they're trying to do is sort of move the goalposts and try to claim that Jen McCabe, they're essentially trying to make it impossible that Karen Reed could have asked Jen McCabe to Google how long to die in the cold, because they're trying to twist Jen's testimony into saying that she is claiming that she did that when she was in the back of the cruiser, which is, if you listen to her testimony, it's not what she's saying and it's not what happened. I think it's silly. They're going like minute by minute, like, oh, it's 6:16. He was getting on the gurney. That's not 6:24 when she made the search. And it's like, I mean, you're not going to know exactly what time it was, right, when you're doing all this stuff. The Google is a marker, but as far as your recollection, no. And if you listen to Jen, like at one point she scooted in the police cruiser with her, but that's not, afterwards she was outside and Karen's grabbing her arm and screaming, and she says, it's cold outside, it's windy, my hands are frozen, and I'm trying to Google. So I mean, I think that like breaking that down and clarifying it, not that it much matters though, because again, like they can play these games on social media. I don't think they're gonna, they didn't fool a jury the first time. I don't think they're going to be any more successful the next time. Probably less successful, actually. So.
It really doesn't matter at all. But actually, I was confused about that too. Now that you're saying it, so was Jen in the cruiser? Was she asked and then she made the search outside?
No.
Do we know?
So she's saying, like, she's talking about it all, and she goes, at some point, Karen's in the cruiser. I scooch in next to her. She's freaking out. She grabs our hand. She wants to pray, right? Then they get out of then they get out of the cruiser, and Karen's running around, and then she grabs, the arm and is shaking her, going, "How long does it take to die in the cold? Google hypothermia," right? Like, so I think it's just like they're trying anything they can. It doesn't matter either way, though, because you've got both Jen McCabe and Carrie Roberts saying the same story, right? And they were there. And, Karen Reed, at least in her interview, she admits to a fair amount of what Carrie and Jen are saying. Like, their stories are consistent, not in the parts that really incriminate Karen, of course, but in that case, Carrie and Jen's stories stay consistent, and it's Karen's that are kind of branching out and diverging. So, I mean, like, again, Karen's interviews actually, in a way, like her words help bolster the witness's credibility, right? Because some of the more mundane stuff, like she's agreeing with them. So she's saying that, yes, they're credible when they say this, right? And so these two people that at some point Karen Reed acknowledges publicly, or like the taillight. Yes, I showed them my taillight. I said it's cracked. They said, don't worry about it. Let's just go, right? So she's saying, yeah, when they say that they saw my broken taillight, that is credible, right? So then you've got these two people and their stories say the same. And now Karen goes, but wait, no, just my story over here. I'm the credible one. It's not going to work, right? So it doesn't really matter.
This is a good question from Trisha. I'm going to ask you it in a second. Obviously, you're not a lawyer, but you may have studied this a little bit. But I just want to respond to Biba's said, how many scans have I had since the ones that I showed today? I get my scans every 3 months. So 4 times a year. It's a good way to live. I live 3 months at a time, and I get the all clear that everything is stable. But I get filled with energy, and I say, all right, I need a 3-month plan now. Let's do a video. Let's do a book. Let's make a website, whatever, all kinds of failed stuff. But it's a good way to live, to have that, instead of saying, I'm going to do this someday, you say, I got to get this done in 3 months. So, but yeah, that's how, so since 2018, so more than 6 years, every 3 months. Trisha Gardner says, question about the judge. Attorney Betterow claims that Judge Cannoni cannot decide what an expert is, that it's never happened, that it's never been done before. I asked him a million questions and played stupid because I knew it wasn't true. So what do you know about the rules on that?
I just texted someone who is an attorney, but my gut instinct is that it's not so much. I mean, obviously they're having a Daubert hearing, so there must be some sort of guidelines or criteria under Daubert that sets parameters for, you know, who's qualified to be an expert.
They're actually in the motions. They're actually in the when I now that I think about it, because they list the case law and there's a little bit of an argument. I can't quote them from memory, but they're actually in the motions explained. So
he is citing case law. So like without. I have not gone back, read the motions, gone on Google Scholar and like read the cases, but I'm going to assume that if Hank Brennan is pointing to the authority, that he's probably not doing so frivolously, like, you know, that there's probably some merit to it. Betterow is an idiot. This is the same guy that, I mean, granted, is not so stupid that he put it in an actual pleading, because that would be humiliating, I'm sure, but did write in a letter that he sent to the prosecutor and filed with the court accusing me of doing Massachusetts State Police surveillance on Aiden Carney's home. Me, that lives in a shitty rented apartment. Great. And apparently is the scum of the earth. This guy is insinuating. It was more than an insinuation. It was pretty much like a flat out accusation that I am somehow working with the Massachusetts State Police. So like Betterow is a tiny little fucking idiot, and I would not take most of what he says seriously, honestly.
Yeah, but it does bring up some interesting questions about where the judge, what she's going to decide. So normally you get, you know, it's battle of experts, and Hank Brennan addressed this in the last motion about Rich Green. So, but he said this is not a battle of experts. I don't have the motion in front of me, but that this is, because you can't just put somebody up there and say he's an expert. He has to be qualified. He has to show a methodology as to what he's applying here. So those are the kind of things there, but it's subtle. It is, you know, there are subtle case law points there, so it's not an easy one kind of soundbite kind of answer for it.
There are some sort of parameters and authority. I mean, I think that's pretty common sense, because again, otherwise you would just call anybody. You would, you know, call me in as as an expert, right? Like, and I'm an expert in nothing. Like, I mean, just because I would take your, you know, $10,000 to say whatever you want me, it just, I would assume that there's some sort of, you know, authority there with the court. So I don't know. I don't even listen to Betterow.
If the court wants to set up a little bar in there, and I can go serve drinks.
There you go. And then you could be a drink making expert. I mean, that's what maybe they could call you, Kevin. You could be like, yeah, I have observed hundreds of drunk people in my life. Therefore, I can opine on Karen Reed's level of intoxication, right? Like, that would be ridiculous, but and I kind of feel like that's the same way that they're handling Marie Russell right now. It's like, well, I've seen some dog bites in my time in the emergency room. Therefore, and it's like, I mean, I think I can't wait till the 7th. I know that they, you know, Karen's attorneys really, really just kind of pushed it all day with her. Like, I don't still understand why, really. But I think Hank is really going to be able to effectively cross her. And I like to see him in action. He's a very skilled attorney.
Actually, I could speak with some expertise on that, not just from being a server, but when you're a bartender, you have to go through server training.
Right.
It's called TIPS, and then there was another one called Barcode. But so I've been through that course many times.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that you don't have any experience.
No, I know. But, just trying. No, of course. So somebody like by Karen's size, she, you know, could maybe do, if she did 4 drinks in an hour, she would definitely be over 0.08, the legal limit. Now, if she did, what did she do? 9 drinks in about 3 hours?
Yeah.
She's definitely going to be way, based on her body size and her gender. Gender matters in this. You would be way over the legal limit.
The rule of thumb usually is that your body can process like a drink an hour, right?
Yes. But in her case, it's going to be less because of her size. She's probably like 110 pounds or something like that. So yeah, but you know, again, this is why she tries to say in her interviews, well, who's to say I wasn't drinking water? You know, she's putting the burden on the state to prove that she didn't somehow dump her drink and fill it up with water. And well, if you want to say you did that, Karen, get on the stand.
Right.
Take the stand and say it. Do you think why don't we finish with that, Kate? Do you think there's any chance now she would take the stand? And the reason I would ask that is when you play, if they're able to play these videos in court, from her doing these interviews, you're telling the jury that you can go on national media for multiple interviews, but you won't talk to them. Does that
Right.
create some kind of a pressure for her to testify?
I mean, they can't hold it against her either way. So it would all be psychological, I think. I mean, to a certain extent. I know, like, whatever, like you can have like some sort of, but ideally, because we want the jury to be fair, impartial, and in a vacuum on both ends, right? So ideally, it would have no impact on the jury at all.
Right.
You tell me actually what you think first.
I obviously it would be a disaster for her to go on the stand. She has no impulse control, and I'm sure not only Brennan but even Larry would be licking his chops to take her on.
Oh yeah.
With all the changes of statements that she's made and what she's going to talk about. But she has the right to go on the stand. So ultimately, she might want to. Well, actually, Hank Brennan had a very famous with a client, Whitey Bulger.
Right.
I expected him to take the stand because he was going to jail for life no matter what. So why not get on the stand and tell your version of events?
I think that most of the time it's just not really that advisable. I mean, I guess the only way that it would really, I'm remiss to even say that. I guess, like in theory, if you really are factually innocent, right? Maybe, but then again, maybe not. Like, I think it's always best. I think that there's probably some more pressure from her supporters. They want to see her on the stand because I think, again, like the delusion is so deep that they honestly believe like she's innocent, so she just goes up there and says it. Like, she needs to explain these things, and like not realizing that like it's disastrous for most defendants to testify. I'll tell you, like, I mean, I've never actually taken anything to trial. I probably will be in the future, but I can't say that I would say with 100% certainty that I would ever want to testify. I guess it would depend on a case by case basis, and like in this case, it would just be stupid. They've got her statements with the media already. She would get absolutely grilled with them. There's too many questions that I don't think she can rationally answer right within the evidence. And then there's the pitting her against the witnesses. I don't think that it would work out well for her.
Right.
People are primed to hate Jen McCabe, but the fact of the matter is that Jen McCabe was composed. She, I think, was relatable at some point, and sympathetic, a little bit angry and combative, but she was able to get across to the jury why that was, right? Like, you know now from the juror interview that they walked away with an understanding of why she was so upset with Jackson.
It almost would have been more suspicious if she wasn't angry. People would have said, why is this person so cold that she's not angry, that they're accusing her of all this stuff?
Right. So my point being, though, is that like these free Karen Read people are primed to hate and distrust Jen McCabe. But I think that if you were to throw Karen Read on the stand and contrast her with Jen McCabe, it would be very damaging.
You might
not
have
to mention Terry Roberts and everybody else. But yeah, I mean, these are.
You might get that Jack Nicholson moment.
Yeah, exactly.
You can't handle the truth to get that outburst, every lawyer's clicking their chops to get a chance at Karen Read to produce that once in a lifetime moment for their career. Well, just one more question on that. So, for instance, looking at the video of, let's say if they get it all for the Dateline and all the various things, strategically, does the prosecution play it because you can use it to your advantage to highlight the inconsistencies on her statements, but you also, if you're playing it, you're showing Karen saying where the jury can see it that she didn't do it. Is there some risk in that?
I don't think so. I don't. I don't see that, because I mean, honestly, her stories are so inconsistent, and not only with each other, but with the information, with the evidence, right? That I don't think that it would bode well for her at all.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much for being here, Kate. It was awesome. I'm just going to say goodnight to people and thank them for the contributions, and then I'm going to jump off myself.
I'm off to bed myself.
Thanks.
Good night, Kevin.
Thanks, Kate. I'll talk to you soon. All right, guys. Again, I just want to say thank you to the people that very generously donated. I appreciate it. So Pat, my good friend, Frank Perry, thank you as always. James, Rena, as always, thank you. Ken the plumber, of course. Ken had a comment. My buddy Tim was given 3 months prognosis bone cancer in 2020. He's doing great today. Every good test in Boston is a blessing. Yep. The thing with cancer is they're making tremendous progress on treatments. When I first was diagnosed, I said my goal was to be in the 1 or 2%, whatever it was, that lasted 5 years, because I believed that they would have better treatments within 5 years. They didn't. It just takes a long time, but they're getting closer in so many different ways. So if I can make another 5, I feel like I got a pretty good shot. And I know Turtleboys and the Frank Can't Read crowd is rooting for me to die as soon as possible, but I expect to live towards the trial is in April. I think I have a pretty good chance of making it. So sorry, guys. Sailboat, cancer sucks, and so do people who are lying. Yep. It's unbelievable how I pointed out to that mom's person who was posting that picture of her head there that I said, she said, "Oh, you say I'm evil for lying." Well, yeah. You tell me, what do you think if you knew someone, especially if you yourself have cancer and have been through a struggle with it, and then you just casually accuse somebody else without any evidence of making up, of saying that they're faking cancer? What do you think about yourself? You look in the mirror. I mean, you don't have any evidence that I have faked it. I've showed it to you again tonight, what the diagnosis was. Short of having my doctor on the show, I don't know what else I can do to prove it to you. And even then, you wouldn't believe it. You would still say, that doctor's a McAlbert. I can tell that's not really a doctor. The problem is you. It's you, moms, whatever that name is, mom juggling, whatever shit. You want to destroy someone else because you don't want to believe what they're saying about the case. And then she says, and nobody listens to you anyways because you're boring and you have no reach. Okay, if I have no reach, then why are you commenting about me? Why are you sending complaints to the GoFundMe to get me removed? Why are you posting pictures of yourself with a scar on the back of your head? If I have no reach, why don't you just ignore me? Because you know otherwise. You know otherwise. And so does Turtle. Turtleboy would try to say, hey, look at the size of his crowd, but he knows. He knows. It's not just me. It's a small group of us. Kate, obviously, more than anyone. But plenty others. Kerry Lama, Karen McCormick, Jen Coffenaffer. There's not a lot of us, but pretty small group of people that are standing up, and we're winning. It's not for us. We're not doing it for that. The real deal. Thank you. Cassie Marie. Cassie says, don't be a Meredith, because that's what it says in the video. And Jenna's and the audio where Jenna's talking about. James Clay says they only attack you because you are correct about Karen Reed killing John O'Keefe, and they can't take it. Yep. They can't handle the truth. Thank you, the real deal. And Ashley St. Angel, thank you, Ashley. Nicole, as always, thank you. Appreciate it. The dude, I think I already showed this, but we'll show it again. It's always worth looking forward to a dude post. A lie doesn't become truth. Wrong doesn't become right. And evil doesn't become good just because it's accepted by a majority. And this is so true. One of the things that these people say out there all the time is look, nobody believes you. Most people are on the other side. Get with the program. That's not a proof of who has the stronger argument. Tom is a creep, and I'm sure he is not talking about Tom Fleming. We know who he's talking about, but why hasn't the Facebook group been closed yet due to the illegal raffles? And is there any chatter of being part of the ongoing grand jury? Yeah, there's always chatter. I don't, as far as the raffles and stuff, I don't know anything about that. Thank you very much, Wicked Uma. And thank you, Hillbilly, what are the odds TB was recording every call with Karen? He definitely, I would say, he recorded the calls. I would say anybody who communicates with Turtleboy, he's trying. Anybody who is in the same relationship with Turtleboy, he is planning to destroy you. Now, it doesn't mean he's going to, but he wants to have that as an option in case he needs to, or to get leverage over you in order to bully you. Pat said, "Hi, Peggy. I'm not sure if Peg O'Keefe was here. I didn't see her. I don't know what her screen name is either." Yeah, this question on the scans. I already answered it. What was your treatment name? So, well, I think you said, okay. So my treatment is a drug called Tagrisso. There's a longer technical name for it, which I can never remember. It's a targeted therapy, but if your friend is not on it, he can't be on it, or she can't be on it. It targets. It's a designer medicine that works only with a specific type of cancer. In mine, it's EGFR cancer with a specific deletion in the DNA of the exon 19 DNA strand or something like that. I'm giving you an amateur description of what it is because I don't really know the full description of it. So if it's a small part of lung cancer, but because lung cancer is by far the biggest cancer in the world, that small part still constitutes millions of people. And it's made by AstraZeneca. Colin says he'd like to know how many people have left Free Karen Read in the last 30 days because of what they learned here. Well, I don't know about what they learned here, but it's a process. Hopefully they come over here. And it's not that I say that I'm going to change their mind or Kate's going to change their mind, but hope they're open. Hopefully they're open to other types of information and asking questions, because that's the key. If you haven't closed your mind and you're asking questions and you continue to ask questions about the logic of this case, you'll eventually get to the same place we do. Bibba, I know your questions were about cancer, so you may contact me anytime with any questions about the case or anything, but you can reach out to me on the cancer. So my email is LEITSKEV, leitskev@gmail.com. And you can reach out to me on that. So on the chance that your friend has something similar to me, or even if you just want to find out what type of supplements I've not only done a lot of supplements, but I did do the THC oil cure years ago I attempted that for 5 weeks. Did not enjoy it at all. Was unpleasantly stoned for a month straight. I did THC oil like every 2 or 3 hours for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 5 weeks. Miserable. Whether it helped or not, I don't know. My guess is probably not, but there's no way of knowing. There is some evidence that THC oil can help with cancer, but it's a lot of that evidence is anecdotal too. So I don't know. I've tried a lot of supplements and some other things that I'd be willing to talk about with somebody in private, but I have no reason to believe that any of it worked. It's possible something helped. It's also the thing about these things. If you don't do something that is not scientifically proven, then it could actually hurt you. It could interfere with your medicine. You don't know. So it's very risky. So that's why I don't like to recommend things to people. These are just things that I try. But if someone really wants to know about that, you can have your friend get in touch with me, and I'd be happy to talk about it with him or her and let you know. Karen said, "Be well, Kevin." Thank you. TJ, thank you. And Laura Dixon, thank you very much. Laura, thank you. She says, "Keep being you. Don't feel you need to explain. Any decent human being believes you." Yeah, I've been doing it twice a year. So the last time I did it, I proved it was this summer, and I don't care what Aiden Kearney thinks about anything, whether he thinks I'm faking it or not. Who cares? But you do have, when they're putting these messages out there that thousands of people are reading, you kind of want the truth out there, so to make sure there's no doubts, especially with people that like you or are on your side or something like that. You don't want them to have questions. So it's proven. It is what it is. I'm sorry I'm still here to those free Karen Reed people. But, yeah, that's fine, Jules. Yeah, you can, because I know people like Jules have tried to defend me, and so that's the other reason I do it. I'm giving them something so that they can feel reinforced by what they're saying. So it's funny. When I was going the other day, I was going through, there was a couple of people that had been, sorry, just looking at messages. There was a couple of people that one person was possibly accidentally blocked. And then we were looking for Karen. So I never could find her name in there. So I don't know what was going on in that. But when I looked through, so on the last show, couple days ago or something, maybe it was a couple of shows ago, I don't remember, but I blocked Turtleboy because he was being obnoxious. Not just obnoxious, but like offensive in what he was saying. But I decided when I went through and looked at it, all right, I'm going to unblock him. So that's why you see him here being himself again, unable to craft an argument, unable to tell the truth, uninterested in telling the truth. But I mean, the truth is him going on his show and acting like that yesterday hurts Karen's cause and hurts his own cause, because any intelligent, reasonable person looks at this guy and says he can't win an argument, so he has to come on and do shit like that. I mean, like I said, even if you're two kids on the schoolyard and you're getting into an argument about something, and then one guy suddenly says, "Oh, well, your mama wears army boots," you lost the argument. You lost the argument. And Turtleboy, you've lost the argument, dude. You've lost the argument. Yeah, no, Turtleboy, go back and rewind and look at the show. I've given the diagnosis of what. So you're ignorant. Even though your mother had cancer, you probably didn't stay in touch with her. Metastatic cancer means it is spread to other organs of the body. That is by definition stage 4. Stage 4 is by definition terminal cancer. I was diagnosed at the beginning with metastatic cancer, which I showed on the beginning of the show here, logging into my own patient portal. All right. So you have no clue. All right. You don't even have a simple understanding of what cancer is. Metastatic is automatically terminal. Stage 4 is automatically metastatic. Are you taking notes, Turtleboy? Because you know your attention span's not too good. So hopefully you're taking notes. All right. So that's what I was diagnosed with. That back then. Now, there are so I had about a 1 or 2% chance when you looked at chance of surviving 5 years. So yeah, I won the lottery, but it's not a miracle. Like I said, I have a friend who was about 5 years younger than me, and he was diagnosed with the exact same cancer 2 months before me, and he's still alive. So, show up where? Confront me now. You got no evidence to back up what you're saying. You never do. You never do, Turtleboy. I mean, you never do have any evidence. You don't have the stronger argument. I just showed you. What do you want to do? Bring my doctor with me to court on Tuesday? Is that what you want to do? All you want to do is cause a. Listen, we know what you're doing. We know your game. you're going to try to do something to piss me off and then run like a little girl bitch that you are over to the police. And yeah, I saw you when you were doing that there outside of Dead and Pizza, when you were running over to police to complain that Kate Peter was going to beat you up. That's what you're trying to do, is trick me into doing that because you're a little girl man. All right. And so you go to court and say that Kate Peter's going to beat you up, and you're trying to trick me into the same boat. We know your tricks. They're not new. You're a little girl man. You don't have any integrity. Everybody knows that. Your own fans know that. Your own fans know you don't tell the truth, except for the idiots. You have some idiots that are clearly brain dead. You know, you got like, what do you got? The pit bull there. I mean, you got a cult following. That's it. Hillbilly says that his uncle had lung cancer and fought it for 6 years. Yep. Once, as always, Turtle, anytime you want to get into a debate with me, you're going to lose. Anytime, anything. Get used to it. You lost on the Karen Reed case. You lost. You know it. You know it, and you can't get out of it. You can't figure out a way out. You blew it. I'll give you credit for this. I think you saw it in the summer of 2023. And that's why you tried to destroy me. Because you knew you weren't going to win. You foresaw the future. You knew it. You knew it. And you tried. And you brought in Alan Jackson to try to do it. And it didn't work. And it ain't going to work. So I just proved to you today that I have not lied about my diagnosis. I've not lied about anything. So. All right, guys, I actually banned him again. You know, maybe at some point I'll take him off the list. But I know that when you get into these stupid little spats, it's annoying to the decent human people that watch these shows and the other people in chat. So I banned him for you guys. So, but I'm sure at some point I'll take him off the list in case he wants to come in for another beating. You know. All right, do you guys have any questions for tonight before I let it go? It's tough for me to sit for more than an hour. So we'll talk about that since we're talking about cancer stuff. So one of the lesions that I had, one of the more dangerous ones, was I had a lesion on the femur head. Actually, I had 3 lesions on the femur head, the right femur head. And so I was lucky at what I was doing heavy leg lifts at the gym with that before I was diagnosed, because the upper body problems, I couldn't do anything because of what I was going through. And so I just started doing more and more legs, and I had no idea that I was putting that femur bone in jeopardy. So I had to, once I was back in treatment and diagnosed, I had to work my way back to it. So then that summer, I did something that I hadn't done in many, many years. I decided to take up running, thinking it might help somebody with lung cancer. And so I ran it almost every day for that summer. And I believe it helped me. You got some shrinkage in the tumors because you're really drawing in oxygen hard that way. But then I developed hip pain on the left side. And so unfortunately, I had to stop doing it. And then last year, when the cancer began to progress again, it was on the left side. And so I just got to be kind of careful with those kind of things, because I went through a week of radiation on that left lesion, but that also weakens the bones a little bit. So any other questions, guys, before we call it a night? Again, thank you, everybody. Thanks, Laura. Appreciate it. Yeah, you can kind of see he's falling apart. He's falling apart, dude. It's over, man. It's over. He can see the writing on he can see the handwriting on the wall. There isn't much left to the Turtle Empire. He's basically, you saw him last night. He's basically Hitler in the bunker in the last days. Tom Fleming, are you ready for ice cream? I actually have some ice cream myself, Tom. We're going to have an ice cream off. I have black raspberry ice cream from Turkey Hill. But Tom's probably going to win this battle because Tom has, what was it? Black raspberry chocolate chunk, I think, or something like that. So that's definitely more impressive than what I have. Steph, good to see you. Steph loves black raspberry too. That was always like one of my favorites going back to when I was a kid. You know, I would get that. So I like black raspberry, but I also like I like every kind of ice cream, but I like vanilla. I like French vanilla. I like butterball crunch. What is it? Butter crunch. Hans Gruber just saying, Kevin, for over a year you've been saying it won't be long any day now. What have I predicted? It hasn't come true. Turtleboy was arrested twice. Okay. Sorry, Hans. I'm not sure what you're talking about as far as or you're talking about the Karen case. You know, I can't control when the trial is, and I can't control the fact that the prosecution did a terrible job, and so we're going to have to go through another one. But that's not going to happen this time, Hans. I'm sorry to disappoint you. Is that another one of Turtleboy's thing, Hans Gruber? I don't know. Somebody actually gave me a list. See, there are multiple. What Turtleboy doesn't know is that people are slowly turning on him. It's not one person. He thinks it is. No, it's not. There are multiple turtle people on the inside that have turned. And so I have a list of some of the alt accounts that he uses. Hans Gruber was not one that I was given, though. But yeah, it's coming, Turtle. It's over. It's over, dude. Do you not know it, that it's over? I don't want any of these people to do anything that's going to make their lives miserable. So I don't encourage them to come out or do anything like that. Because we know what you are. We know what your mob is. We know what you'll try to do. Look, we had a perfect example from last night, just from somebody saying that you should move on from the topic of fake cancer. That's a supporter of yours, and you're telling them they should eat shit. So you can imagine what you'll do to someone who turns on you, right? So I don't encourage them to do that. But it's happening, man. It's happening. People look at you, how you behave, and they recognize two things. One, the utter lack of decency. The utter lack of decency. You're not a decent human being. Two, you have no interest in the truth. No interest. You don't have an interest in knowing it, and you don't have an interest in telling your people about it. You've taken this on because you thought it would be good for your brand. And that's it. And you don't tell people things that don't fit your narrative. And unfortunately, a lot of those people are too stupid to figure it out. But anybody with half a brain has figured it out. This is who you are. You're not a journalist. You're not even an advocate. If you were a good advocate, you wouldn't do this. You could have been a good advocate, but you can't control yourself. And calling Peg O'Keefe the C word all the time, that's not good advocacy. That's stupid. And this is on every other show you're doing. I don't watch them, but I get the people send the clips. Everything that you do, a lot of the stuff you do actually harms Karen Read because it's so fucking stupid and it's offensive. And decent people out there, even people that believe in Karen's innocence, see it and they say, this guy's offensive. So you're not even a good advocate. You're not good at anything except creating a circus. That's it. And you know it. You do know it. So you had your day. You made a lot of money off this. No question. You made a lot of money. I'm guessing you're going to lose it all in legal fees. I don't know. Who knows? But it's over, dude. Who's going to be listening to you when you get out of jail? All right, guys. So let's call it a night. And I think all of us can sleep well knowing that truth is prevailing. Decency is prevailing. It took time, but it's prevailing. The days of Turtle are done. You're in the final days. It's bunker time. All right, guys. Enjoy your weekend.